Have you ever stopped to think about why some people seem to attract wealth like a magnet, while others struggle to make their money last? The truth is that there are invisible financial traps that may be sabotaging your future. Imagine being just one step away from achieving your dreams, but a simple mistake is holding you back. What if I told you that, just like Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in the world, many of the secrets to financial success are hidden in small details of everyday life? Have you ever made any of these mistakes without realizing it? The good news is that recognizing these slips can be the first step toward transforming your relationship with money. Now tell me, how many times have you refrained from investing out of fear? Or how many opportunities have you missed due to not knowing how to manage your finances? These questions could be the key to opening the doors to prosperity. Get ready, because we will explore together the 30 mistakes that may be preventing you from becoming wealthy. And believe me, by identifying and correcting these slips, you can change the course of your financial life forever. Let's go. Lack of financial planning. When I think of financial planning, I remember how for many years I lived on autopilot. I spent what I had and, honestly, never worried much about a stable financial future. It was like sailing a boat without a rudder, not knowing where I was headed. It wasn't until I realized I was always chasing bills that I began to understand the importance of having a well-defined financial plan. A plan, after all, is like a map that guides us through the turbulent waters of financial life. Over time, I realized that the lack of planning not only affected my bank account, but also my mental health. Anxiety about money became a constant in my life. I remember one month when, without a plan, my expenses exceeded my budget. In the end, I had to use my credit card to cover the expenses, and that just threw me into a vicious cycle. The feeling of always being on a tightrope motivated me to find a way to organize my financial life more rationally. Developing a financial plan requires a certain effort, and believe me, it's work that pays off. I started by making a list of my monthly income and expenses, what I earned and what I spent. This simple practice helped me visualize better where I was going wrong and where I could save. Since then, I began setting financial goals, like saving a fixed percentage of my salary every month. By doing this, I feel like I am in control of my financial life, not the other way around. Another point I learned was the importance of reviewing the plan regularly. What worked for me a year ago may no longer be relevant today. With changes in life, like a new job or a raise, it's crucial to adjust the plan to fit the new reality. Flexibility in financial planning is essential to stay on track and achieve long-term goals. Realizing that financial planning doesn't have to be rigid or boring was a major discovery. It can be adaptable and even fun. Over time, I began to view my financial goals as a game. Each achieved goal was a victory. With this, the lack of financial planning became a distant concern, and I managed to transform my relationship with money into something more positive and constructive. Not investing in financial education. Financial education is a topic that, I confess, I always set aside. I thought it wasn't necessary, that it was complicated, and that I didn't have time for it. However, I realized that this mindset was preventing me from making smarter financial choices. When I finally decided to seek knowledge in this area, it was like opening a door to a new world. I began to understand concepts that previously seemed complex, such as compound interest, investments, and even the basics of how the financial market works. I remember the day I bought my first book on personal finance. The feeling of investing in myself was exciting. As I read, I realized how the lack of financial education had led me to make poor decisions in the past. I learned that it's not just about making money, but knowing how to manage it in the best way possible. This shift in perspective was fundamental to my financial evolution. One of the most valuable lessons I absorbed was the importance of understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. Before, I didn't think much about what was truly worth investing in. Now, I always seek to acquire assets that can generate income in the future, rather than simply spending on things that add no value to my life. This change made me realize that financial education is not just about numbers, but about building a safer and more prosperous future. Moreover, I realized that financial education is ongoing. It's not something you learn once and are done, The world of finance is always changing, and what was true a few years ago may no longer be relevant today. That's why I constantly seek to update myself through courses, podcasts, and blogs. This constant pursuit of knowledge has made me feel more confident in my financial decisions. Financial education is not just a personal issue. By learning about finance, I realized that I can also help those around me. Sharing this knowledge with friends and family has become a way to strengthen our bonds and, at the same time, create a more financially conscious community. The feeling of contributing to the financial well-being of others is rewarding and reinforces the importance of never stopping learning. Disregarding the importance of saving. When talking about savings, many people immediately think of a piggy bank or something that is only useful for emergencies. For a long time, I thought the same way. However, over time, I learned that saving is much more than that. Creating an emergency fund is one of the wisest decisions you can make regarding your financial life. It helped me understand that unforeseen events happen and that being prepared for them is essential for financial health. Once, I faced an unexpected situation. My car broke down and I needed an urgent repair. If I hadn't had a reserve, I would have had to rely on my credit card and probably go into more debt. But thanks to my savings, I managed to cover the cost without stress. This experience showed me how financial security brings peace of mind and prevents small crises from turning into major problems. Moreover, saving is a form of financial discipline. By setting aside a portion of my salary for this purpose, I learned to better control my spending. Developing the habit of saving made me rethink impulse purchases and prioritize what really matters. The feeling of seeing my fund grow month by month is very rewarding and motivates me to stay on this path. Another benefit I discovered is that saving doesn't have to be a tedious task. With technology, there are apps that help manage and track savings simply and practically. Today, I can clearly visualize my savings goals, whether for a trip, a course, or even a future larger purchase. This makes the entire process more enjoyable and less exhausting. I learned that saving is the foundation for building a solid financial future. With an emergency fund in hand, I can start investing in other areas, such as stocks or real estate. Saving has given me the security I need to diversify my investments, knowing that regardless of the circumstances, I will have a safety net to support me. Excessive debt. Excessive debt. This is a topic I know very well. I have been there, trapped in a cycle of debt that seemed never ending. At first, I thought I could manage everything, but reality was quite different. Each impulse purchase, each unnecessary expense seemed like a small momentary pleasure, but in the end, it turned into a heavy burden. The feeling of being in debt is distressing and can affect not only financial health, but also mental health. I remember a time when bills started piling up. The credit card seemed like an easy solution, but in reality, it was a trap. Each month, I paid only the minimum, and the debts grew. Over time, I realized I was only postponing the problem instead of solving it. This experience taught me that excessive debt is not just a matter of lack of money, but also a lack of planning and discipline. One of the hardest decisions I made was to seek professional help to understand the situation I was in. Talking to a financial advisor was a turning point. He helped me outline a plan of action to get out of the red. I learned about the importance of prioritizing debts, renegotiating deadlines, and even finding ways to increase my income. This guidance brought me hope and the certainty that it was possible to turn the situation around. Over time, I managed to pay off my debts and began to value every penny. I learned to live within my budget and avoid unnecessary spending. This transformation wasn't easy, but the feeling of freedom I felt when I got rid of my debts was indescribable. Excessive debt can feel like a prison, but recovery is entirely possible. Today, I seek to share my experience with others, especially young people who are just starting to deal with their finances. Talking about excessive debt and its consequences is essential, as many still do not understand the seriousness of the situation. Financial education is a crucial step to prevent others from going through the same path I went through. Not diversifying investments. For a long time, the idea of diversifying my investments seemed confusing and unnecessary. I thought that if I had a single investment source that seemed promising, there was no reason to complicate things. Unfortunately, this mindset led me to make mistakes that could have been avoided. When the real estate market, where I had invested most of my money, started to go into crisis, I realized that the lack of diversification could cost much more than I had imagined. Making emotional decisions. When it comes to finances, it's easy to be led by emotions. I remember a time when, after a stressful week at work, I decided to buy a new top-of-the-line smartphone. The feeling of instant satisfaction I had when acquiring that gadget was undeniable. But when I looked at the credit card bill at the end of the month, I realized I had acted on impulse without considering the impact it would have on my budget. This kind of emotional decision is not rare. Many people end up making purchases based on happiness, sadness, or even frustration. And this can be a significant enemy of personal finances. The truth is that our emotions can lead us to poor financial decisions. When we are anxious or insecure, for example, we may be more prone to seek quick solutions, like investing in something we don't understand just to try to recover a loss. I've been through this too. In a moment of despair, I bought shares of a company simply because I heard a friend talking about its potential. The result? I lost money and felt guilty for not having done the proper research. I learned that it is crucial to separate emotions from finances, and whenever possible, to take a step back and evaluate the situation calmly. A strategy I adopted to avoid emotional decisions was to establish a waiting period before making significant purchases. When I feel that uncontrollable urge to buy something, I give myself 24 hours to reflect. Often, I realize that the initial emotion dissipates and that the purchase wasn't so necessary after all. This has helped me maintain control over my budget and avoid future regrets. Additionally, by allowing myself that time, I can think about how that purchase fits into my long-term financial goals. Another useful technique is to keep a financial diary. By recording not only my expenses, but also how I felt about them, I was able to identify emotional patterns that influence my decisions. For instance, I noticed that when I'm tired or stressed, I'm more likely to spend more. With this awareness, I can take steps to care for my emotional well-being, preventing it from impacting my finances. Self-awareness is a powerful tool, and by understanding myself better, I can make more informed decisions. It is essential to cultivate a healthy financial mindset. This means learning to see money as a tool and not as a source of happiness. When I shifted my focus, I realized that financial decisions based on goals and planning lead to greater satisfaction in the long run than impulsive purchases. I learned to seek gratification in financial achievements, such as saving for a trip, rather than seeking immediate satisfaction in products that ultimately do not bring lasting happiness. Neglecting the power of compound interest. The concept of compound interest is fascinating and often underestimated. When I began to understand how it really worked, I was amazed at its potential to multiply my capital over time. The first time I heard about this was at a personal finance seminar. The speaker used a simple example. If you invested $1,000 at a rate of 10% per year, in 10 years, that investment would grow to $2,593.74. This made me realize that time is a powerful ally when it comes to investments. One of the mistakes I made early in my financial journey was not starting to invest sooner. I always thought, oh, I have time, I can start later. The truth is, that procrastination cost me a lot. After finally investing a considerable amount, I realized that I had lost out on a significant portion of the growth potential I could have enjoyed had I started years earlier. The lesson was clear. The sooner you start investing, the more time your money has to grow. The power of compound interest is exponential, and this becomes evident when you look at graphs showing capital growth over time. Moreover, a common mistake is withdrawing investments before they have a chance to grow. In the past, I had the habit of liquidating investments whenever I needed money or when things got tough. This is a mistake many make, as by doing so, you interrupt the cycle of interest capitalization. I learned the importance of staying calm and focusing on the long term. Thus, whenever financial difficulties arise, I seek alternatives that do not involve selling my investments, as I know that in the long run, that patience can result in significant returns. Another point I discovered over time is that even small amounts, if invested correctly and for a prolonged period, can result in a surprising sum. When I started investing, I thought I needed a considerable amount to see results. But over time, I realized that investing $100 a month could lead to a significant portfolio due to the effect of compound interest. This taught me the importance of starting with what you have and being consistent, rather than waiting until you have a larger amount. It is crucial to understand that knowledge about compound interest applies not only to stock or fund investments, but also to savings and debts. When you have debt, compound interest can work against you. During a challenging period in my life, I accumulated some debt, and upon realizing how much the interest was piling up, I understood I needed to act quickly to avoid sinking further. This experience taught me the importance of managing debt and the need to be proactive about personal finances. Lack of discipline in spending. Discipline in spending is one of the fundamental pillars of maintaining financial health. At the beginning of my journey, I used to operate on autopilot, spending without thinking. It was as if I were on a cruise control, just going with the flow without really paying attention to what I was doing. Impulsive purchases were constant, and in many cases, I found myself buying things I didn't need just because they were on sale or because I saw someone else buying them. Over time, I realized this was draining my budget and, more importantly, my ability to save. To develop discipline in spending, I decided to create a monthly budget. At first, it was challenging, as I wasn't used to tracking every penny I spent. But as I became familiar with the process, I realized that this practice brought me much greater control over my finances. I started categorizing my expenses and identifying areas where I could cut back. For example, I was able to significantly reduce my spending on dining out simply by cooking more at home. This small change had a big impact on my budget. Another strategy I adopted was the 60-30-10 technique, where 60% of my income goes to essential expenses, 30% to non-essential expenses, and 10% to savings or investments. This approach helped me visualize where my money was going and ensured that I prioritized savings. Additionally, by allocating a specific part for non-essential spending, I allowed myself to make some purchases and go out, but always within limits. This helped me avoid the feeling of deprivation, which often leads to excess. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is the importance of having clear financial goals. When you know where you are going, it's easier to resist temptations. I set short-term and long-term goals, such as saving for a trip or for the purchase of a car. Each time I felt the urge to spend on something unnecessary, I reminded myself of those goals and the satisfaction I would feel when achieving them. This gave me an additional motivation to maintain discipline in my spending. It's important to remember that discipline doesn't mean total deprivation. I learned to celebrate small victories and consciously reward myself. Instead of spending thoughtlessly, I started planning rewards that wouldn't compromise my budget. This not only helped me maintain discipline, but also made the financial process lighter and more enjoyable. Balance is key, and by finding ways to reward yourself within your financial planning, you can have a healthier relationship with money. Investing without research. Investing without research is a dangerous path that many beginners in personal finance end up following. I must confess that I have made this mistake a few times. I remember an occasion when I overheard a casual comment about a new cryptocurrency and, knowing nothing about the project, decided to invest a considerable amount. The excitement blinded me, and I ended up losing a good part of my money. This experience made me realize that research is a fundamental part of the investment process, and ignoring it can lead to significant losses. The first thing I learned was the importance of understanding what I am buying. This means not only knowing what the company does, but also how it positions itself in the market and who its competitors are. I began reading financial reports, following industry news, and analyzing performance charts. This practice not only helped me make more informed decisions, but also gave me a broader view of what is happening in the market. Unaware of investment taxes. When I started investing, one of the things that surprised me the most was the issue of taxes. I had a rather romantic idea of what investing was. I imagined that my money would simply grow, as if it were a plant receiving sunlight and water. But the truth is that, along the way, I realized that taxation can be a true thief of returns. Each time I thought I was doing well, there came the taxman to take a part of what I had earned. This experience taught me the importance of understanding the tax regulations surrounding my investments. In Brazil, we have different types of taxes that can apply to investments, such as income tax and IOF. Income tax, for example, is applied to capital gains, and its rate varies depending on how long we hold the investment. What I didn't know is that often this variation could mean a significant difference in how much I would actually earn. I learned the hard way that if you don't pay attention to these details, you can end up paying much more than necessary. Moreover, the issue of tax exemption on some investments, such as savings accounts, is a double-edged sword. While this may seem advantageous, the returns often do not compensate. Therefore, it is essential to have a strategic view and understand how taxes can influence your net return. Knowledge of these aspects helped me reorganize my portfolio and choose investments that, even with taxation, still offered a good return. Another point I learned was the importance of keeping a strict control of my investments and their respective tax rates. I created a spreadsheet where I record everything from gains to losses, and this gave me a clear view of how much money was effectively left with me after taxation. This practice not only helped me make more informed decisions, but also brought me a sense of control and security, which is essential in this world of uncertainties. What I want to emphasize is that we cannot ignore taxes on investments. They are an integral part of the equation, and if we are not careful, they can sabotage our financial plans. Learning about taxation was a turning point for me, and I hope that, if you have not yet encountered this, you start educating yourself on the subject as soon as possible. Underestimating the value of networking. Networking. When I heard that word, I immediately thought of formal events, business card exchanges, and that rehearsed handshake. But as I matured in my financial journey, I realized that true networking goes far beyond that. It's about building genuine and meaningful relationships that can open doors and provide opportunities that we would never have otherwise. In my experience, networking has proven to be one of the most important pillars in building wealth. In the beginning, I thought that my financial success depended solely on my investment and finance skills, but I soon realized that behind every great opportunity, there was a connection. I met people who, through their experiences and knowledge, helped me avoid financial pitfalls and identify opportunities that I would never have noticed on my own. These interactions showed me that shared knowledge is a powerful tool. A clear example was when I attended an investment event and met a mentor who became a great friend. He introduced me to concepts I had never considered, like investing in startups, and helped me understand the risks and rewards. This friendship not only broadened my perspective on investments, but also gave me access to a circle of people who were equally interested in growing financially. This exchange of ideas and experiences proved invaluable. Moreover, networking also helped me diversify my income sources. By meeting entrepreneurs and professionals from different sectors, I was exposed to new ideas and opportunities that allowed me to explore areas I would never have imagined. Every conversation, every connection was a chance to learn something new and often discover a new investment opportunity. What I want to make clear is that networking should not be seen as a calculated exchange, but rather as building authentic relationships. Investing time and energy in getting to know people and building a support network can be one of the best decisions you can make on your financial journey. Never underestimate the power of a good conversation and a sincere relationship. Focusing only on active income. For a long time, my view of financial success was centered solely on active income. I woke up every day, went to work, and my focus was on earning as much as I could. The idea that I could make my money work for me felt like a distant fantasy. However, as I learned more about finance and investments, I realized that this was a colossal mistake. Focusing only on active income limits your possibilities and overlooks a fundamental part of wealth building. What I didn't understand is that passive income is one of the keys to financial freedom. When I finally entered the world of investments, I discovered a multitude of opportunities that could generate income without my needing to be actively involved. Real estate investments, dividend-paying stocks, and even online businesses became viable options for me. Each new source of passive income I added to my life brought me closer to my goal of financial independence. One of my greatest discoveries was the power of dividends. Previously, I didn't pay much attention to dividend-paying stocks, believing that only stock price appreciation was relevant. But as I began investing in solid companies that distribute profits, I realized that it was possible to generate continuous income just by holding those stocks in my portfolio. This shift in mindset was crucial and taught me the importance of diversifying income sources. Additionally, I started exploring entrepreneurship as a way to generate passive income. The idea of creating a business that could operate independently of my daily job fascinated me. Over time, I was able to develop a small online venture that started generating extra income for me. This experience not only provided me with greater financial security, but also allowed me to learn valuable skills that I otherwise would not have acquired. Finally, what I want to emphasize is that focusing only on active income is a limited path. It's essential to diversify your income sources and seek opportunities that can generate cash flow even when you are not actively working. Financial freedom is within reach for those willing to look beyond traditional employment and explore new possibilities. Avoiding healthy risk. The fear of taking risks is something we all face at some point in life, especially when it comes to money. I confess that I was one of those who preferred the security of the comfort zone. However, over time, I realized that avoiding healthy risk could mean missing out on valuable opportunities. Life is a series of calculated risks, and learning to manage that fear was a fundamental part of my financial growth. At the beginning of my journey, I had an extremely conservative mindset. I only invested in safe options like savings accounts and government bonds. While these options are important for financial security, I was overlooking investments that could offer much higher returns. Learning to deal with risk was like opening my eyes to a new world of possibilities. I began to understand that the reward is often proportional to the risk you are willing to take. What really helped me change this mindset was the realization that risk can be managed. It's not about throwing money into the dark, but about doing careful research and understanding what's at stake. I started studying different types of investment and familiarizing myself with the characteristics of each. This gave me the confidence to diversify my portfolio and include assets that, although riskier, had the potential to offer significant returns. A clear example of this was when I decided to invest in technology stocks. At first, I hesitated. After all, the stock market can be volatile and unpredictable. However, after conducting in-depth analysis and understanding industry trends, I realized I was missing a great opportunity. When I finally invested, I was surprised at how much my portfolio began to grow. This experience taught me that healthy risk can actually be a powerful tool for wealth growth. I want to emphasize that avoiding healthy risk can be one of the biggest obstacles for those seeking financial freedom. It is essential to learn how to balance fear with information and analysis. Life is full of uncertainties, but it is in the opportunities that risk brings that we find the potential for growth. Don't be afraid to take risks. What matters is doing so consciously and informed. Ignoring the importance of persistence. Persistence is a quality that is often underestimated, especially when we talk about finances and investments. At the beginning of my journey, I was like many, excited about the idea of quickly becoming wealthy. And when things didn't go as I expected, the frustration was immense. I didn't realize that financial success is, in fact, a marathon, not a sprint. Learning to be persistent. So, everyone, now that we have analyzed the 30 financial mistakes that might be holding you back, I want you to look at your financial life in a different way. Think about how many times you have let opportunities slip by due to fear or lack of information. Warren Buffett always says that the greatest risk is not investing. And are you ready to change that mindset? But before taking action, let's reflect. What mistakes do you recognize in your own journey? Procrastination, lack of planning, or even rampant consumerism? Each small adjustment can mean the difference between living with limitations and enjoying true abundance. Imagine what your life would be like if you had total control over your finances. What kind of investments would you make? What dreams would you fulfill? Don't let past mistakes determine your future. Now is the time to take charge of your financial life. If you like this content and want more valuable tips, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, which mistake are you going to correct first? Let's embark on this journey towards prosperity and wealth together. After all, your success starts now.